Thank you. Now, our next member of the press, please identify yourself and create your question.
Hi, my name is Terry Clementson. I work for Kaye News, and I wanted to touch on the terminal project or Redwood Dock or all of the above, and just talk more specifically. I know you all touched on the project and kind of gave some vague answers, you know, being pro-development or looking at other things, but really getting down to the nitty-gritty. Some people have talked about cruise ships coming in. Some people have talked about Navy vessels coming in. Some people have talked about just, you know, Susan mentioned the length of the dock and looking at that. Can you all just give us some more details as to what your real goal would be for that project and how you would push that forward on the district, on the board if you were on the board or are on the board?
The order of this question will be Dan, Susan, Richard, and Mike. Dan, please start off.
I would promote it as a phased project, and depending upon the availability of funding, no, I don't believe cruise ships are an answer. I've seen communities that have given their souls to cruise ships, and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. Cruise ships don't pay their own way. They actually charge. They try to get free services for willingness to come to a port that helps a few small retailers but doesn't help the overall economy. The naval vessels are certainly one that's a possibility, but I look at it as long-term for increased shipping.
Okay, first of all, I would not for the development of the terminal. Nothing in the trans-system feasibility study or business plan convinced me that there was any need for it. Each time they came up with a different version, they shifted the emphasis of who would be coming in. One month it was that we were going to have 40 cruise ships. The next month it was that we were going to have 40 barges. And those numbers may not be exact, but they waffled back and forth. My feeling was they were coming and listening to the public and coming back with something that would please as many of us as possible. So, you know, as Mike mentioned, we have docks that are sitting unused or underutilized, and until those are utilized, I see absolutely no reason in spending money on another dock.
Thank you,
Mike. That we don't talk about in terms of the feasibility of a marine terminal that requires the ships of the sizes that we were talking about in the feasibility study, and that's our shoaling issue out at the mouth of Humboldt Bay. You know, since the deepening project occurred in 2000, maintenance dredging has tripled. Has gone up 300%, up to 1.5 million cubic yards a year on average that we're pulling out of Humboldt Bay in order to keep the entrance and the channel open. That's equivalent to what is pulled out of San Francisco Bay for its 4 ports. And that's something that's really serious. And we've had more draft restrictions since 2000 than before 2000. And this is one of the things shipping requires is reliability of the entrance. And this is a big problem with regards to the entrance that has to be addressed. And I promote very strongly us to do the study to get there, but it costs a lot of money, and we're going to need to do that. What I believe is we need to go back to the drawing board with regards to the Redwood Marine Terminal site. I believe we need to look at options such as aquaculture business park. We need to look at options such as a business park for businesses that have a nexus to Humboldt Bay, like businesses like Wing Inflatables, like Cocotat, who are actually already, Wing's already moved on to Humboldt Bay in one location, but we need to be a nexus for those types of businesses, like manufacturing, those kind of things. Those are options, but we need to realistically look at all of the options, not just a terminal and then everything else is secondary. We need to really open it up so that we can have real business development with real jobs. That's what we need to talk about, jobs that are likely to occur, or at least more likely to occur. That's what's important, and I'm going to promote that.
Thank you. And now from the last...
Richard.
Excuse me. I was to see if you're paying attention.
As far as this subject and revisiting this, the Redwood Dock, you know, I said that we were going to need to pare it down and actually, well, dummy it down. The economy is not in the same situation it was then. We don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of years. You know, there might be some need of that in the future. And so as the economy moves, of course, that's how the Harbor District will have to address that issue. As far as, let me go ahead and touch on the other private docks. Just for your general information, they're empty, both Murphy's Dock and Schneider's Dock, 95% of the year. 95% of the year, those private docks are empty. But, you know, there is hope in the future that something will happen and maybe there can be a collaboration between everybody on the bay. And I'm just looking, you know, I'm not going to look at the negative side. I think we need to push forward as far as our economy. I'm hoping out that things will change. And if not, then we'll have to deal with it. And it might be in just a cleanup, you know, that we do have money for. Or, you know, we'll have the full plan. And of course, I'm stressing jobs because I want to be positive. There's a lot of people in this economy that have suffered here recently, but, you know, I think that the future is still viable.
Humboldt Bay has about 4.5 miles of coastal dependently zoned waterfront. Port of Oakland has about 4.9. This isn't the only location where we can do this type of development if we need to and if the opportunity arises. So I believe that the district needs to look at what it can do moving forward today. And that I think is really important. And the timeline for the resurgence of shipping is a decade or two at least. And not even a resurgence, it's a slow grind back to the good old days, according to almost all of the economists that you talk to with regards to West Coast shipping. And so we're going to have to be realistic about this. I'm an engineer, I'm a business person. These are the day-to-day realities that my customers and my clients deal with, and we have to put our feet back on the ground just like everybody else.
Thank you. Now we'll try this again. Now our last member of the press, would you identify yourself and create your question?
Charles Douglas, Humboldt Sentinel. Just a two-parter on accessibility. Woodley Island, whether that rail between Eureka and Arcata comes back or not, you cannot get there safely by pedestrian or by bicycle. What would you do to see Woodley Island become more accessible, whether it's a ferry boat, whether it's an undercarriage to carry passengers across the bridge safely, whether it's a hovercraft? What's your ideas on that? Second, other local governments, ones that are a bit smaller in jurisdiction than the whole county, which the Bay District covers, they all have their meetings live on local public access television, live streaming on the internet. The Harbor District, besides a few valiant efforts by private citizens to tape your meetings and put them on after the fact, really doesn't have that kind of technology going. The technology is certainly available. Access Humboldt certainly willing to work with you folks. So what is it going to take for that to happen?
Okay, the order of this will be Richard, Mike, Susan, and Dan. Okay, this is a two-part question, accessibility and access, cable access to the meeting.
Of course, the accessibility issue, you know, for the handicap, you know, that's a good question. Why don't we have something? We used to have the ferry that went, of course, from over by Lazio's over to the dock and actually out here in Samoa. And I used to actually, you know, go and greet my brother-in-law when he used to actually have to, that was one of the only ways to get across. He used to have to actually drive all the way around through Arcata, and over here it used to be quite a long drive until the 70s when they did make that bridge. But unfortunately, when they made the bridge, they didn't think about the pedestrians. And it's too bad that there is not a safer, you know, way to get across from Eureka to Woodley Island. And I would be happy to look into any kind of alternative solutions to that. But as far as accessibility on TV, actually I was public at one of the meetings at the Harbor District and saying that that's something that needs to be addressed, and we should make it more accessible for people in Humboldt County to know exactly what the Harbor District is doing. I know in the economic development meetings, they've been having them on TV, and that's very informative and a good thing, and makes it accessible to people who can't make it over to the marina.
Very good. Mike?
That's an interesting question. You know, it actually still, it goes back to the creation of the district and back to the 1970s with regards to, you know, when they put in the bridge there, it was sort of that 70s planning. Everyone was driving everywhere, putting the marina out on an island away from the community was the way things were done, because of course they wanted to save the land on the waterfront for industrial uses along in Eureka.